Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you will be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is midday, and this is Africa Updates coming to you live from Johannesburg, South Africa, on Channel Africa from an African perspective. I'm Lulu Gaboo. A lot coming up this hour. First, let's go to the news.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Thank you, Lulu, and greetings to our listeners. Some 200 West African soldiers, mainly from Nigeria and Ivory Coast, are in Benin to support the government following Sunday's failed coup. The attempt was foiled after Nigeria deployed fighter jets to drive the mountaineers out of a military base and state TV headquarters, where they had declared a takeover. This is the first time that officials have said how many foreign soldiers were deployed to the country, although it is not clear if some have been withdrawn since Sunday. A manhunt for those involved in the plot is underway, with the leader of the failed coup, Colonel Pascal Tigre, said to be taking refuge in neighboring Togo. South Africa's Border Management Authority says it will issue a fine of around $800,000 per traveler to Ethiopian Airlines. This after the BMA disrupted a suspected human trafficking operation at OR Tambo International Airport in Kempton Park, Johannesburg. 14 Ethiopians and 16 Bangladeshis were interrupted by BMA immigration and border law enforcement teams at the airport and are now being processed. BMA spokesperson Mimi Mokhodzi says Ethiopian Airlines will also be responsible for transporting the group back to their country of origin.
The investigations are still ongoing now to look at whether there was consent in them traveling in the country. We are now determining what was happening. But in the meantime, we need to process them, take their fingerprints, and ensure that once everything is concluded, they must be sent back to the place of origin.
Today marks the 25th anniversary of the Algiers Agreement, a landmark peace treaty that formally ended the border conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia. It established a crucial framework for peaceful relations between the two nations, that with support of the international community. The agreement created mechanism for demarcating the common border and reaffirmed the fundamental principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity for both nations. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, has urged Eritrea and Ethiopia to recommit to the vision of lasting peace and the respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Republican-controlled Senate in the U.S. state of Indiana has voted against the new congressional district map. It would have helped the party retain its slender majority in the federal House of Representatives in midterm elections next year. The vote marks a rare instance of Republicans defying President Donald Trump. The BBC's Sean Daly.
The defeat in Indiana is a significant blow to President Trump and his national push to redraw voting maps. It matters because the attempt to change the districts in a way that would have benefited Republicans has been thwarted by Republicans in a very public challenge to President Trump. The scale of the rebellion is also significant. The move had already been passed by members of Indiana's lower chamber, and Donald Trump had used social media to tell any Republican senator who did not support remapping he'd support any electoral challenger to them.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I am Onelin Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, Benin have suffered a major injury blow ahead of the Africa Cup of Nations. And the World Athletics has started the 2026 World Relay Qualifiers. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
This is Africa Update, your pulse to the continent. Stories shaping nations and voices driving change. Stay informed, stay connected, right here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
It is 12:04 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. Today on #Africa Update, ask, as the year enters its final stretch, what are your plans for the festive season? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 #Africa Update Ask.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Deogratus Bwire, wewe kama mkurugenzi wa shirika la kutetea haki za binadamu kutoka kule Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Maandamano yameendelea kwa siku ya pili. Nini kinaendelea?
Kwanza mimi ningependa tusiliweke kama wafuasi wa upinzani. Kwa sababu kiukweli mimi nilipata kidogo kushuhudia watu waliokuwa wanapita barabarani hawakuwa kwa namna yoyote ile wamebeba bendera ya chama chochote cha upinzani.
Umezungumzia swala zima, vitu ambavyo havijakaa sawa vinapaswa kurekebishwa. Vitu hivyo ni nini?
Hivyo vitu ambavyo havijakaa sawa tayari nimeshavisema huko. Najua kumekuwepo na mtiririko wa matukio mengi sana, watu ambao wanakuwa wanapinga masuala kadha wa kadha ambayo yanaonekana kufanywa na vyombo vya dola kwenye mitandao au hata pia nje, wamekuwa wakichukuliwa hatua.
Darubini ya Afrika kila Jumatatu hadi Ijumaa kuanzia saa 11 kamili hadi saa 12 kamili jioni majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 12:08 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. A report suggests that the United States is preparing to intercept more ships transporting Venezuelan oil in the coming weeks. Now, this follows the seizure of a tanker this week, as well as increasing pressure on President Nicolas Maduro to step down. Venezuela's government says the U.S. seizure constituted a theft. Now, the U.S. has executed a large-scale military build-up in the southern Caribbean. And to chat to us more about this, we are joined on the line by international relations expert Professor John Strimlau. Prof, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you, Lulu. And there is no expert on Donald Trump.
Now, Prof, what strategic objectives is the U.S. pursuing by intercepting Venezuelan oil shipments in the Caribbean? Is it a way of frustrating Maduro and pushing for him to step down?
That's one of the presumed reasons that Trump is doing what he's doing. But, their contradictions are many. He's pardoned the Honduran ex-president Hernandez for 2 years of 45 years of 2 years ago for 45 years of complicity in drug trafficking, and at the same time is going after ostensibly for drug trafficking Venezuela. But I think that there is another game that's being played out, which is that Trump is a regional hegemon, and he does not challenge Russia really in Ukraine or China, but he would like to keep Russia and China out of the southern hemisphere. And that's one of his games, I think. But he doesn't also want to intervene militarily because this is a swamp, which is a reminder of past presidents, and he wants to be simply different from them. And so consequently, he is pressuring Maduro, the president of Venezuela, who is in a fragile economic situation. I mean, Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez, had $120 a barrel oil, and Venezuela does have the largest reserves of any country in the world. And now it's at $57 a barrel, estimated, and so consequently he's trying to pressure Maduro to leave office, but also would like to get the oil directed to the United States, even though it still imports Venezuelan oil. It's a very confusing picture, but it's still. I think he wants to reassert a kind of regionalism, a domination that is symptomatic of an old thinking of balance of power.
But with this old thinking of balance of power, firstly, what is he going to do with the oil? Is it going to be used for the U.S. and the U.S. Allies or neighboring countries? And does this then not work against Donald Trump in terms of pushing Maduro to get even closer to Russia, China, Turkey, or Iran?
Well, those are good questions, and it's very hard, as I say, to predict what Donald Trump is about. But it does appear that he is trying to pressure the Maduro government to collapse. And Maria Cornelius Machindo's Nobel Peace Prize in Stockholm yesterday is symptomatic. She was assisted by the U.S. to get out of there, and she would be favorably disposed to U.S. U.S. and Venezuelan relations if she was to succeed him. But Trump doesn't really care as long as the successor is more of a friend of the U.S. than Maduro is, and there's a long history of troubled relations between Washington and Venezuela, but it is hard to predict.
Just she made an appearance after a very long time. There was an expectation that she would appear, in public for the first time. This is Machado. But now, how does this then play out? How should the world react to this? Because it's not shocking. It would be expected for U.S. President Donald Trump and the way that he's been doing things and building, I guess, allies and getting rid of certain leaders who don't believe in, or countries who don't believe in his way of doing things. But what now?
Well, I'm more worried about Africa and the cutting out of the USAID, frankly, and so that Africa can be friends with all other countries and stay out of this mess that is the Caribbean. But your question earlier about what is he going to do with the oil, and the U.S. is now supposedly self-sufficient in petroleum exports, but there is a voracious appetite on the part of AI entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley that are all close to Donald Trump, and so therefore maybe the thirst for oil and Donald Trump does not care about climate change, or at least he says he doesn't. So I don't know what to make of this situation, but it is the fact that the Congress is now mobilizing in response to the shooting up of ships from boats from allegedly ferrying drugs to the United States. But in fact, there is a possibility of war crimes committed in the killings of other fishermen that were hanging on to the boats and the civilians, and it just doesn't make sense to me that they would go to this extreme. But nevertheless, he does seem to be hell-bent to destabilize Maduro's regime and reap the benefits that would come from a successor being allied more closely with the United States than with China or Russia.
Well, Prof, I can't speak to you and not touch on the G20 and what has unfolded with South Africa not being there, but having Poland take up the seat that, belongs to South Africa. What's your take on that?
Well, my take is that South Africa was the only adult in the room, and for Donald Trump to confuse multilateralism with bilateral differences, you can have differences. And Ronald Lamola's on behalf of DERCO statement in response to, I commend to all your listeners to read Lamola's paper on that. It's not long, but it's very well reasoned and very strong in his defense of South Africa's success at playing the multilateral game and for the sake of Africa and for the global South, and getting more of the participation, and for the Sherpas to 19 of them to agree on a consensus document, I think was a real achievement, and that South Africans ought to be proud of.
Well, Prof, it's always a pleasure. We are going to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Okay, bye-bye.
That's international relations expert Professor John Strimlau joining us on the line. It is 18 after 12 Central African Time.
Your life, your rhythm, your Africa. Channel Africa. Find it for free on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
In November 2023, the Ashtar Theatre in Ramallah in the central West Bank, Palestine, issued a global call for artists to perform the Gaza monologues written by artists under siege. Now, this weekend, artists in South Africa have heeded the call and will put on a Shakespeare to Gaza performance in the city of Cape Town. And to tell us more, we are joined on the line by Tariq Jenkins, an activist and artist. Tariq, good afternoon. And thank you for joining us on Africa Update. Tariq, are you there? All right, we are going to try and get Tariq back on the line. Tariq, are you there? All right, we'll try and get him back on the line just to unpack exactly what Shakespeare to Gaza, the performance that is to take place in Cape Town, is all about. And we'll get more details on there once we get him back on the line. You're listening to Africa Update, coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. And join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, Tariq is back on the line. Tariq, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update. We lost you there for a moment or two.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Now, tell us about Shakespeare to Gaza.
The Shakespeare to Gaza is an initiative that was started about 2 years ago, when the Ashtar Theatre released its latest edition of the Gaza monologues. These are monologues that have been written by artists from Gaza, and there was an international call to theatre practitioners, artists, poets around the world to basically take these monologues and share them, post them, perform them publicly, to bring about awareness on the kind of cultural genocide and epistemic forms of violence around cultural and heritage erasure that is happening in Palestine. This particular production, however, was inspired by a very powerful monologue that was written by an artist called Ali. And Ali's piece is called From Gaza to Shakespeare. And so when we decided, when I mean we, artists from and activists from Save Our Sacred Land, South Africans Youth for Free Palestine, and a number of Khoi leaders who did a cleansing ceremony and planted an olive tree in the Two Rivers Urban Park precinct 2 years ago. When we encountered this particular monologue, it inspired a full response. And what has culminated is basically from that a collaboration with activist artists called Shakespeare to Gaza.
And who are some of the artists that are committed to this?
So we've had a number of different casts over the past 2 years, but I would say that the key members who have sort of helped initiate this and have kept the momentum include Sarah Matchett, Dina Callahan, Megan Choritz, and myself. We have performed it in conjunction with a number of institutions, educational institutions, such as theatre artists from the University of Cape Town, also at UKZN, and this edition as well that's happening over the weekend is a combination of existing professional actors and also students and alumni from the University of Cape Town.
And how long will this be running for?
So we have 3 performances of the weekend, starting tomorrow with the first performance at Hidding at 6 p.m. and then on Sunday, 2 performances at 3 and at 7 p.m.
And, what should people look forward to without giving too much away, but just a snippet?
Well, what we've done is that we have combined a number of Shakespearean soliloquies, sonnets, and pieces with selected parts of the Gaza monologues. And so it is really an intertwining of this classical text that also speaks to, the themes that are inherent and embedded in the Gaza monologues.
Tariq, proceeds will be going to Gift of the Givers. Can you tell us why you've chosen them to receive the proceeds?
Yes, we've chosen Gift of the Givers. We, throughout the inception of this project, it interchanges between Gift of the Givers and the Ashtar Theatre because we feel that Gift of the Givers is a bona fide, reputable entity that will be able to, use these funds appropriately.
Tariq, all the best, and thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you very, very much.
That's activist and artist Tariq Jenkins joining us on the line. It is 25 after 12 Central African time.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
South Africans worry about making financial ends meet in January. This is contained in the South African Depression and Anxiety Group SADC 2025 Festive Feeling Study. The survey shows how South Africans feel during the holiday season. The study collected over 2,000 valid responses from across the country. Tutongobeni compiled this.
The South African Depression and Anxiety Group SADC has released the results of its 2025 Festive Feeling Study, showing how South Africans feel during the holiday season. The study collected 2,095 valid responses from people aged between ages 18 and 65 years across the country, with most respondents from Gauteng, Western Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal provinces. People from different backgrounds took part, including employed, unemployed, self-employed, and students. Senior Research Associate at the University of Johannesburg, Dr. Brownin Dozanowski Venter, says they were interested in covering suicide rates.
The 2025 SADC Festive Feelings Survey was conducted partly online and partly through hard copy research that we managed to obtain from our containers in Ivory Park and Diepsloot. We managed to achieve valid responses from 2,095 individuals. And the survey was really focused on working out how SADC could best support individuals who might be struggling this festive season. We were also interested in uncovering reasons behind the suicide trends, which we've noticed, where we've seen that there are increased cases of suicide around December and January each year, and that men are particularly vulnerable. So that was sort of part of our main motivation for doing the research.
Some of the key findings of the survey include 73% of the respondents worry about making financial ends meet in January, the most common festive season stressor, while 69% feel anxious about not having enough money to spoil or support loved ones this December. Dozanowski Fender says the key findings are divided into 3 categories, with women feeling overwhelmed while men opt to disconnect.
In terms of our key findings, we discovered that people's festive feelings could be split into 3 categories. That would be thriving, surviving, and disconnecting. Now, the people who were thriving were anticipating Christmas with great excitement, whereas the people who were surviving were experiencing a lot of depression and anxiety and experiencing high levels of stress as they anticipated the festive season. A main part of the stress had to do with the fact that people really felt that they didn't have enough money to spoil their loved ones. So it was definitely a concern about getting by, and parents in particular were quite concerned about how they would afford the new year. And in fact, school supplies and things like that were in front of mind. A lot of people, though, whether they were parents or not, had previously experienced January, and as a consequence, people were quite worried about money. Though what we do see is that for men in particular, it's an especially large worry. While both men and women were concerned about being lonely during the festive season, it was definitely a case that women felt that they might be lonely in a crowd, as they were very overwhelmed maintaining all kinds of social obligations, cooking and feeding and taking care of lots of people, whereas men generally tended to be part of the disconnecting group. And a big reason why they wanted to disconnect was really because they felt that if they couldn't afford a really expensive Christmas, then perhaps it wouldn't be worthwhile spending time with family and friends.
Dozanowski Fender says the recommendations of the survey is for people to have honest conversations about what they can afford around this time of the year and understand that money is part of their resources and also impacts their energy.
So some of the main recommendations that we'd like to make revolve around setting expectations with people, having a conversation and being quite honest about what we can and can't afford at this time of year. We also have to understand that money is one of our resources, but our energy is another one. So while we should be trying to connect and have good quality connections, we should also be trying to avoid numbing out completely and disconnecting from others this festive season. One of the ways that we can do that is to do regular check-ins with one another and also make sure that every person feels that they have inherent value. So in other words, if you can't afford to buy a gift but you still have affection, well, that care and affection for one another is free.
Those who are finding it difficult to cope at any point in their lives are encouraged to seek help from experts. For Channel Africa News, I am Tutongo Bene in Johannesburg.
It's time for the news.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Looking at your headlines, some 200 West African soldiers, mainly from Nigeria and Ivory Coast, are in Benin to support the government following Sunday's failed coup. The attempt was foiled after Nigeria deployed fighter jets to drive a group of soldiers out of a military base and state TV headquarters. The Gqeberha High Court in South Africa's Eastern Cape Province has dismissed the National Prosecuting Authority's application for leave to appeal the acquittal of televangelist Timothy Omotoso. And the Republican-controlled Senate in the U.S. state in Indiana has voted against the new congressional district map. It would have helped the party retain its slender majority in the federal House of Representatives in midterm elections next year. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
First up in our sports update, we begin with football news. Benin have suffered a major blow ahead of the Africa Cup of Nations with two key players ruled out. The Cheetahs will be without Felipe Santos, who recently picked up an injury at his club, and striker Andreas Hondoji, who has not recovered physically or mentally from the knock he sustained against Bayern Munich. Team officials confirmed both players will miss the tournament, leaving Benin to regroup without their influential duo. Elsewhere, Angola's captain Freddy says the Palanga Negras are targeting a semi-final spot at the upcoming AFCON in Morocco. The team has never won the tournament, with their best runs coming in 2010, 2018 and 2023 when they reached the quarterfinals. Freddy believes Angola have what it takes to compete strongly, adding that while a semi-final is the goal, reaching the final would be fantastic for the team. South African wicket-keeper Beta Quinton de Kock continued his sensational form since returning to the Proteas setup, leading the team to a 51-run win in the second T20 International against India yesterday, in the process levelling the 5-match series 1-1 with 3 to go. De Kock scored a quick-fire 90 from 46 deliveries, decorated with 7 sixes and 5 fours, as they posted 213 for 4 batting first. Having been dismissed for a duck in the first match, de Kock says he had to make amends this time around.
Just trying to get myself into a better position. I think initially I was quite irritated, disappointed with myself. The previous game, the way I got out was very sloppy, I think, well, at least for myself. So I knew if I stood a chance to score runs, just need to look after that in the first couple of balls, especially to a guy like Arshdeep and Booms. You have to be strong in your positions, or otherwise they are going to find you out. You can't be loose.
De Kock has been among the runs since returning to the team for the tour of the subcontinent, which also included ODI and T20 series in Pakistan. He says he has found it easy to make the transition back into international cricket.
I think it was pretty easy coming back. I mean, as a player, I mean, as a batsman in a whole, I think, because I was doing it quite a bit before, I knew what it took in order to be an international cricketer again. So that transition was fairly simple. It's just a matter of just doing it.
World Athletics has launched its qualification tracking tool for the 2026 World Relays in Botswana, and Nigeria's relay teams face a mixed outlook. The mixed 4x100 squad is Nigeria's brightest hope, ranked 17th in the world with a time of 42.91 seconds, well inside the top 24 cut-off. But the men and women's 4x100 meters teams are outside qualification territory. Then men ranked 48th and the women 35th, meaning sharp improvement in baton exchanges, speed distribution and consistency will be needed before the 26 April deadline. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fidel Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon. Our top story this afternoon, Nigeria State Oil Company, NNPC Limited, has reported an explosion at their Escravos-Lagos gas pipeline on the 10th of December, disrupting operations and triggering an emergency response near the Tebidro, Okpele and Ikpopo communities. Initial checks indicated a pressure drop consistent with a loss of containment. The company has not disclosed damage details or casualties. The pipeline, vital for supplying gas to power plants and industries, has a capacity of 2.2 billion cubic feet per day. NNPC is conducting investigations and coordinating with emergency response teams and local authorities. 10 smallholder farmers in Musina in South Africa's Limpopo province have delivered a bumper harvest of more than 3,300 tons of tomatoes, equating to around 135,000 crates for the production of one of the country's iconic tomato brand sauces. This massive delivery, which exceeded supply targets, comes courtesy of support from Tiger Brand's newly launched Hulisani Agricultural Development Program. The initiative has created an additional 156 jobs, securing a total of 500 livelihoods in the local communities. One of the underprivileged farmers who benefited from the program is Chililo Mafuka.
It's a seasonal farming that we do contract with Tiger Brand. We plant in different stages like January, February, March, April, May. Then we start harvesting in April. So the chance will be the total from April until September. But the total was 35,000 tons. For me personally, I was able to deliver 490 something. But on contract, it was 240 tons.
South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal Province's Tourism and Film Authority says the tourism sector is showing strong signs of recovery after it was severely distressed during COVID-19 and the July unrest. According to the agency, the province is expected to generate over $755 million from October this year to March next year. More than 1 million domestic visitors and around 30,000 international tourists are expected over this festive season. The agency's head of public relations, Bingiha Debe, says they're also seeing a new trend with holidaymakers starting in Durban before exploring inland attractions.
We're definitely gearing up for a bumper festive season here in KwaZulu-Natal. We are expecting over 1 million domestic trips into KwaZulu-Natal this December. Our summer starts from October up until March, and so tourism could just inject more than 13 billion into the KZN economy this festive season. And of course, cruise tourism alone brings over 110,000 visitors into our province this season.
Kenya's High Court has halted $1.6 billion health cooperation agreement with the United States due to concerns about citizen health data safety. This unprecedented deal, part of a new U.S. aid model, would provide significant funding to Kenya in exchange for increased domestic health spending. However, consumer advocates highlight potential issues related to data protection and government oversight. Kenyan constitutional lawyer Kennedy Mungare.
What they're raising basically is, we have what we call the public participation aspect in the Constitution. When government, individuals, or an act is done, it must involve a public participation. So the agreement, which is done by the President of Kenya and the United States of America, has not been in Parliament, whereby we have parliamentarians who are delegated powers on behalf of the citizenry. That's why the
European shares opened higher, tracking overnight gains on Wall Street after the S&P 500 closed at record highs. This as investors globally cheered the Federal Reserve's interest rate cut and remained optimistic about more in 2026. The Pan-European Stoxx 600 was up 0.3% at 582.96 a day after logging its biggest one-day jump in over 2 weeks. And now take a look at the indicators. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,449 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 32. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 12. Zambia, 23 kwacha. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 44. Russia, 79 rubles 10. In India, it's 90 rupees 19. China 7 yuan 5, and South Africa $1 is trading at 16 rand 90 cents this afternoon. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,320 per ounce, platinum at $1,729 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $61.04 a barrel. And that's the business news. For any stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Headbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
The South African Medical Association, SAMA, has officially suspended all relations with the Israeli Medical Association, a move welcomed by healthcare workers for Palestine, South Africa. The organization says this decision represents a powerful stand for medical ethics, justice, and human rights, echoing the global call for solidarity with Palestinians.
And recently, we've also seen other national associations, such as the British Medical Association, Turkish. They've released quite strongly worded statements, although none have gone as far as SAMA to cut ties with the Israeli Medical Association, as well as to call for the suspension from the World Medical Association. It's a watershed moment that an organization has actually taken this step. And it's not an idle threat. SAMA is a member of the World Medical Association, and they can action this resolution by bringing it before the World Medical Association.
Dr. Sadiq Mullah, chairperson of Healthcare Workers for Palestine, South Africa.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 12:43 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. South Africa's Border Management Authority has intercepted 14 Ethiopian nationals and 16 Bangladeshis from entering the country through the OR Tambo International Airport. This forms part of efforts to combat human trafficking, irregular migration, and transnational organized crime. Both groups were traveling on Ethiopian Airlines flights. And to tell us more, we are joined on the line by Memme Mukhodzi, the Deputy Assistant Commissioner for Communications and Marketing at the BMA. Memme, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, Lulu, and thanks for having me.
Now, just give us some details about the two interceptions and what exactly prompted the intervention by BMA officials.
Our work is very intense in terms of being able to combat human trafficking, irregular migration, transnational organized crime, and particularly during this festive season, we are intensifying our efforts. So when we got our passenger information of flights that are coming in, we saw that there were Ethiopian nationals, 14 of them, that were in the Ethiopian Airlines yesterday. And when we saw, we had to do preliminary investigations whereby we saw that these travelers are attempting to transit from South Africa to a neighboring country, as well as come back to South Africa in terms of passenger movement. So that was very strange in terms of how do you transit in South Africa to a neighboring country and come back to South Africa. So investigations are revealing that this is a modus operandi that is commonly used in human trafficking syndicates. So we had to intercept that group and say, why would you be transiting in South Africa? So the findings had to direct us to intercept these individuals, and then we had to process them through the immigration legislation. So what happens is that after we intercepted them, we fingerprint them, we record them in our system, and then we must deport them back to where they were coming from. So the airline that brought them in here, which is Ethiopian Airlines, must bear the cost of those individuals. And over and above that, we are fining the airline 15,000 rands per each person that we are sending back in their airline due to due diligence not being done. Over and above that, in a separate incident, like a few hours later, 16 Bangladeshis also arrived, Ethiopian Airlines. So they were intercepted, they were interviewed. So what they did when they arrived, Lulu said, they started, at the airport, foreign nationals have got to be in their own categorized area, in their own queue. South Africans must also be in their own queue. These Bangladeshi travelers joined the South African queue.
Did they know they were joining the South African queue, or was it just an error on their part?
I think they were just trying to confuse the environment.
Okay.
And with joining the South African queue, they're trying to blend there in the South African queue, and they were separated from the South Africans there to say, where are you coming from? What documents do you have? So we put them in our border law enforcement area, where we had to now further probe as to why are you now wanting to, move within the areas that you are not supposed to move in. This is an airport, there are clear directional signs translated. So when they were interviewed and investigations are happening, the colleagues, the travelers are saying, no, we are here in the country, we're traveling on distance visas. Now, upon inspection of those visas, we realized that these visas are fraudulent. We checked the first one, second one, third one, all 15 of them. Now, when we realize and when we do interceptions like this, it's very critical for us to also, probe with the airline to say, upon your inspection, was there no confirmation or detection of maybe a fraudulent visa or not? But because we have intercepted it, we now have to continue with our investigation to say, where is this thing coming from? In the Ethiopian interception, there were women, 9 women, 5 men. So we need to follow up this thing so that if there are ring or syndicates of human trafficking, which it's very suspicious that people are traveling, in groups, they don't know probably where they are going. We need to get to the bottom of that. But we are now conducting our investigation so that we are able to come to conclusion. Once we are done with the investigation, we will be able to deport these individuals back to where they came from, but we'll continue with the investigations, and then from then on, we have to find the airline because there needs to be due diligence in terms of probing, where are you going? Why would you transit in a country and come back to the particular country?
Now, have you, Meme, because of time, have you observed an increase in attempted human trafficking or irregular migration through the OR Tambo International Airport recently?
The area, the time that we are in now, which is the festive season, it's bound to have increased movement, and then we make our major intersections during this period. Recently, particularly with OR Tambo, we do make interceptions, but with these large groups of 16, 14, it's what is happening. It's what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
So we will be intercepting 2, 3 people, one,
Yes.
And we're very vigilant. That's the one thing about BMA. We're very vigilant, and then in terms of looking at patterns of movement. We are now going to be in the land borders because there's going to be people exiting. We want to also detect what the goods and what they are carrying. We have also our K9 units, the dogs that will be assisting us.
Well, Meme,
on the ground.
Meme, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. We are going to have to leave it there today. That's Meme Mukhodzi, the Deputy Assistant Commissioner for Communications and Marketing at the BMA. And joining us in studio is Matseko Musito, and she is with the Upside team. How are you today? Welcome back.
I'm good. Look at you and I trading places.
You know.
I'm usually on that other side.
I know. What's coming up today?
Okay, so Musical Friday as per. So join us because we have a wonderful interview coming through with DJ and producer Villa Soul. He is an amapiano expert, as I understand it. So we're going to talk to him, find out more about his brand new album, Black Sheep. That title on its own should get us listening. So please tune in between 1 and 4 p.m. with Deboho and myself.
That's the upside coming up at the top of the hour with Matseko Musito and Deboho Likuleni. We continue on Africa Update, and there's an interesting one coming up with this week's segment of the African RT Beats.
Be inspired. Stay informed. Channel Africa, the beauty of life. Now available anytime, anywhere with our new app. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Welcome to this week's African RT Beats exclusive to Channel Africa, the African Perspective. I'm Nhlanhla Mahlangu. In this week's segment, the eminent Video Music Awards to take place in Mpumalanga province of South Africa this weekend, and content creators celebrated at the TikTok Awards Sub-Saharan Africa. The eminent Video Music Awards will take place on Saturday, the 13th of December 2025 at Emalahleni in Mpumalanga province in South Africa. The awards are a platform and initiative that was conceptualized to honor, award, recognize, and celebrate creatives for their hard work in creating music videos and content respectively. EVMA's event director Dumisani Kanyile says the awards will be spotlighting creatives that work behind the scenes like directors, producers, and music video production companies, amongst others.
The eminent Video Music Awards, in brief EVMA, serve as a vital platform that was conceptualized to give honor, to recognize, and also to respect the unsung heroes that are creating music videos, especially the unsung one. I'm talking about the producers, I'm talking about the makeup artists, those who are making the music video, because normally we see the artist in the forefront, without knowing who did these beautiful music videos, you understand? So I said to myself, as Utumsan, I said, you know what, maybe if we can have this concept, because another thing, the music video that we are receiving on behalf of the creatives to submit it on TV, they were not of quality, it's like they were done by someone who does not even know. There is no storyline. People are just dancing by the swimming pool. You understand that there is nothing. There is no storyline at all. There is no alignment with the lyrics and also the visuals. So I said to myself, maybe if we can have the music video awards, just a way of maybe they know at the end of the day, if I invest my time on this, there's an award that I'm going to get at the end of the day. So basically, that's how they were formed and also conceptualized, and of which this is the 5th edition, and I'm excited because we've been hosting, we started 2021 during COVID, very strict conditions, but I said, you know what, we are starting, because if you don't start, someone else is going to start this, and I'm proudly say we are the first in Africa to have such initiative of music videos awards.
How are the videos selected? How do people submit videos for nomination?
Beautiful question. What I can say is that the nomination process, we normally send out communication on our social media platforms, and also since now it's been like 5 years doing this, you understand. So we have the database of each and every creatives, the record companies and everything. So we have the database. So when we announce, we also send the newsletters to them that the EVMA has opened for entries so they can submit. And some of the artists, most of them, they don't even know, because it's via the public votes. If maybe I like as an artist, I like that particular music video, so I can enter on behalf of Untantla as an artist, as a creative, you understand? And then for us is to let know that creative, you've been nominated based on public votes, that they are nominating this music video, and then that's how we get the information in the public.
is the event open to the public? How do people who want to be part of the award ceremony go about doing that?
So the event is open to everyone, and I believe now it's going to be a long weekend from Friday, because the E16 is on Tuesday. So it's a long weekend. So if you want to celebrate, if you want to come and have fun, I mean, we have artists performing, we have Abo Lady Zama, we have all the greats, Abo Stan B, we have Abo CC, we have everybody who are nominated. They will be performing that side. So make your way there. Make sure that you are part of this glamorous event.
The digital art scene in Africa is getting louder, bolder, and more colorful. From food storytelling to creative education and niche content spaces, TikTok creator community is reshaping what modern African expression looks like. This past weekend, Johannesburg played host to the 2025 TikTok Awards Sub-Saharan Africa, a celebration of creators turning everyday moments into culture. Channel Africa's Lebogang Mabange has the story.
The awards brought together content creators from across the region, highlighting the changing dynamics of Africa's digital landscape. TikTok says the move to host the event in Johannesburg reflects the city's growing position as a cultural and creative hub. Boniswa Sidwaba is the TikTok head of content operations for Sub-Saharan Africa.
The first ever TikTok Awards Sub-Saharan Africa was hosted in Nairobi, Kenya. We then subsequently moved the awards to Johannesburg, South Africa. Johannesburg has become one of the most vibrant cultural hubs on the continent, and it represents a creative spirit that aligns perfectly with what the TikTok Awards are all about. And our goal is to continue empowering African creators, helping them grow, thrive, and turn their passions into sustainable careers.
Sidwaba says the awards have evolved alongside the creator economy, shifting from viral fame to recognizing niche expertise and long-term influence.
The TikTok Awards have evolved significantly because the creator economy itself has evolved. In earlier editions, the focus was largely on celebrating viral moments. This year highlights creators who are turning niche content into mainstream culture, from educators and storytellers to social impact voices and digital entrepreneurs. We are spotlighting individuals who are using the platform to build influence, monetize their craft, collaborate with brands, and create meaningful community-driven content.
One of the winners of the night was Food Creator of the Year, Malume Foodie, who says the recognition shows that consistency and audience engagement matter more than follower count.
I'm no longer a nominee, I'm a winner for 2025 Sub-Saharan African TikTok Awards. And I never even thought I was going to win. What do you mean? Someone had 1.8 million followers and I don't even have 1 million followers, but I won. It shows, guys, that engagement is quite something that you need to do, and also be consistent with whatever you do.
The platform also honored creators driving social impact and education. Education Creator of the Year runner-up Michelle Expert says the recognition strengthens her mission to support entrepreneurs across the continent.
I am so excited. Let me tell you something about the work that I do. There is such a huge passion to equip people with entrepreneurship skills.
And that report by Lebogang Mabange. And that's how we wrap up Africa Update today and for the week. Well, have a great weekend, but continue with us on all our social media platforms, and we will do this again on Monday. Bye-bye.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet, Channel 628.
Well, it's 1 p.m. Central African time. A big thank you to Lulu Gaboo and team. Happy Friday, happy Friday. It's time for The Upside from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time. But before we get into our festivities, let's get the latest news.